Welcome to Beyond Sundays, a podcast from two friends trying to follow Jesus more closely. Odds are you won't always agree with us and will stumble along the way, but we do promise to be open and honest all the way through. I'm Hannah, here with Matt. We've got a website you can use to keep our show links and socials all in one place. Check out beyondsundays.pod.com. We're grateful for everyone that's listening, and we are thankful that you fit us into your busy schedule. We do ask that you follow us, rate us, and then share us on Facebook or whatever social media platform you use. And I do believe we have a very good episode for today. How do you feel about that?
Yes, I'm ready to roll. Shouts to the people, shouts to the listeners, shouts to the episode, shouts to you. Just shouts today. Just really shouts.
I agree. And I will say that this is the earliest episode we've ever recorded.
Yep. You know what? I feel fine.
I'm like, is my brain spacey or is it not spacey? Are you back in like the rhythm for school, by the way?
Yeah, I started getting up at my normal like school time this week I didn't really want to, but I just thought, I need to kind of get the
Yeah.
wheels clicking, and I'm almost 40. I need to get things running. So,
Are you?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not there at
Okay.
all. I think I'll do fine, especially the first week of school. It's like you've got that adrenaline anyway, and I have no problem falling asleep. But like on
Now, will I be asleep at like 4:30 in the afternoon on some piece of furniture the first 2 weeks of school? Yes,
yes.
I will. Yes, for sure. For sure.
Well, so like this week I got back in my classroom, and yesterday I worked for, I don't know, 6 or 7 hours. I was in there forever yesterday.
Whew.
And then the day before, I was in there for a period. I had to leave. So I took the card to spend you get so much money to spend on supplies every year.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I took the Walmart card, and my plan was to go early on, is today?
Today's Friday.
Oh, I'm so lost. Either way,
Yeah, well,
I think
that's about to be over. The summer's almost over,
So I think my plan was on Wednesday to take it in the morning.
Okay.
Well, I got this urge on Tuesday night to
Oh,
go ahead and to go into town. And it was like
okay.
8:30. In fact, I take all that back. It was Wednesday night after church. I
Okay.
decided I was going to go to Walmart. Now,
Wow.
I hate going to the grocery store. Like
Okay.
I order all my food through like Kroger pickup, Walmart
Sure.
pickup, that
Sure.
sort of thing.
Yes. Yes. Uh-huh.
But I figured it wasn't going to be crazy busy.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. That's pretty late at night.
Well, yeah, you would think.
Yeah. Bonkers.
But, truthfully, everyone that I've encountered that works at Walmart, they're super nice.
Yeah. Okay.
But you get into these lines and it's self-checkout. I'm in self-checkout for 20 minutes standing there waiting. And then this young kid, he was so nice. But everything I would ask him, he'd go, I think so. Let me go ask someone else. And so it would take an additional amount of time for me to get anything checked out and anything finished. So I've decided that going into the store is complete suffering. It's just not, it's not fun. Like, are you like Liam? He is not a shopper. I can't take him shopping. It is like,
It's not my
he likes
favorite
the grocery
thing either.
store though.
No, Michelle, first of all, I mean, the person I'm closest to in the world does not identify with anything you said. She likes to go, she enjoys it. It's like, it's kind of like her alone time. I don't know. It's like everybody has those little things that they like to do that's just theirs. Her just happens to be going to the grocery store. So, man, if I didn't luck out, you know. And no, I'm like Liam. In fact, when we were first married, she thought that I think she had in her head that we were gonna like go to the grocery store
Everybody
together
does when they
all the
first get
time. It
married.
was gonna be cute. And I knew that was not in my future plans. And so the first time we went together, I like rushed her. I complained. She forgot 2 or 3 things. So we got home, we unpacked everything. She looked at me and she said, "You are never going to the grocery store with me ever again." And outwardly I was sad about it, but on the inside I was like, like mission accomplished. And no, I don't like it. Although I will say there are like 2 or 3 things that I make in the house that I'm like that are my thing. So if I need an ingredient for that, there is something different about that. I don't mind to go get that thing. There's also like a Dollar General up the road from us that really has like a shocking number of things. So as far as that goes, if I'm there to get like 2 or 3 things, I go in there like a secret agent. Like, how fast can I get back out of here? You know what I mean?
Of course you do. You probably time yourself.
but I just not going to answer that. But like if I have to go in there and like drop $150 on a full week's worth of groceries or something, that is definitely not for me.
Yeah, my mom enjoys that too. But as kids, we would go and it was a Saturday thing and we
Oh,
would play hide and go seek in the store. I mean, we did
sure,
all kinds of silly stuff.
sure.
But my mom and my aunts, they loved it. My Aunt Leanne, she'll look in every single aisle at every
Oh
single
man.
item. I do not want to do that. My biggest problem is I always stop and talk to people. And so then and not that I don't like talking to people, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it
Right.
extends it
What
way
should
longer
take
than
you really like 12 minutes takes you like 30 minutes. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
which is not unusual in my life. It kind of tracks.
Yeah.
So today we are going to talk about, do Christians have to suffer to serve God? Do you have to go to the grocery store to serve God? No, just kidding. Just kidding. But do
Or
you have,
Walmart.
or just Walmart in general? It is just a rough I almost wore my favorite Walmart pants today.
Oh
My
my. The people
the
of Walmart just live on the Beyond Sundays podcast,
the
Just
Nightmare
really getting
Before
it.
Christmas ones. I almost wore them.
Stop. You
I
do not
love.
wear those into the store.
No, I never wear them in the store, but I
Okay,
wear them at
okay. Oh,
home.
okay,
I
okay, okay,
bought
okay.
them from the store.
Okay, it's your Huga. Got it. I got it.
Yeah, yeah, my Huga, exactly.
Yeah.
So I want to start off with some scriptural references
Hmm.
for suffering in the Bible because you you cannot read the Bible and not recognize their suffering. So I want to start with Luke chapter 9 verse 23.
Hmm.
And it says, "Then he said to them all, let me read that again. Then he said to them all, whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross daily and follow me." Right in that scripture there. If you want to be a disciple, you have to carry a cross. And
Yes.
you and I both know a cross is not a pretty thing.
No.
So right there, we're seeing, okay, this is suffering.
Yeah, for sure. I did what I almost always do when you send these
Yeah.
scriptures is I'm sure you did this too. I backed up and I read the whole Luke chapter 9. And pro tip for any listeners, that's something I almost always do is I definitely read like some of the scriptures before and the scriptures after, but I just kept going back in Luke 9. Listen to the outline of Luke 9. It's like a pivotal chapter in the entire New Testament. So at the beginning of the chapter, Jesus sends out his 12 disciples. Then he feeds the 5,000. Then there is Peter's like revelation of who Jesus is. You are the Christ, Son of God, right? Then Jesus foretells his death. So all of those like major, huge points in the reason why Jesus came. And then the chapter ends with, if you want all this, you got to deny yourself and take up your cross and follow me. So honestly, if you just wanted to rip out one chapter of the New Testament that tells the whole story, you could
Yeah.
do way worse than Luke chapter 9. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
100%.
This is like
100%.
fundamental level stuff. Yeah, this is what it is.
Well, and I always go back to this point of the cross. That
Yeah.
is the symbol for Christianity everywhere.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah.
on the steeple, it's a cross. And that is not pretty. Like, I mean, I have cross
Mm-mm.
necklaces I wear around my neck, and it's like that was a nasty,
Whew.
gory thing. That's what I'm carrying.
Yes. Yes. And so to think to really stop and to think about what does that mean about my life is such a I'll be honest with you, it's like the single most off-putting thing about Christianity. We like the
Yeah,
blessing and we like the protection and we like the heaven pot of gold at the end of the rainbow and we like all those things, but though that is not what defines Christianity. I don't think it is the cross, it is you denying yourself. That's what
yeah,
defines it, right?
yeah, 100%. 100%. I do have a second scripture I want to
Yeah.
read, and it's Second Timothy 3:12. And it says, "In fact, everyone who wants to live a godly life in Jesus Christ will be persecuted."
Mm.
Any
I
thoughts on that
Yeah, I
scripture?
did the same thing here. I just backed up and I ended up reading the whole chapter. And this is right in the middle of like Paul's given predictions about the last days. Uh, and then we get this persecuted scripture right in there. So there's like this, it's not going to be good in the last days. There is going to be persecution. And then what comes right after that is Paul's declaration that all scripture is breathed out is God breathed for our edification and to make us better. Right. And so again, you've got this like pivotal chapter. Here's what's coming at the end. It's not going to be pretty. Guess what? The scripture is true. Right. So
Yeah,
you can't divorce yourself from these ideas that are not fun at all of suffering, persecution. These are just I just really think this is part and parcel of what it means to follow after Jesus. This is just what
yeah,
comes.
yeah. And I have two schools of thought there because my first thought is I think we Big C Church
Mm.
have kind of downplayed that because you know, we want it to all fit into that perfect cookie cutter hour-long service. We go in and get our healing and our deliverance and our financial stability, and we want it there. And then when we leave, we just want to be able to live our life. And I think Big C, as a Big C church, we forget it requires laying down our life daily, serving and giving back to Him, as you know, to the Lord.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of a misconception for the Big C church.
Yeah, I
I think I
definitely think
said that
so.
like 4 times in a row right there. If you didn't get
We
it,
we
get
gotta
it
love
now.
a big C church around here, you know.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that you brought up Walmart to me because I think a lot of what the big C church does is it kind of I don't want to say it's changed the message of Jesus, but I definitely think it has. I think it has blunted this stuff about suffering and persecution in an effort to try to reach to people and be as like this is kind of a gross term to use, but like as marketable as it possibly can be to
Yeah. Yeah.
attract people to it. It's like there are all kinds of products laid out on the shelves in Walmart, and the church lays out all these products more or less for people. But like the suffering and the persecution, it's either on the I don't know which you can tell me which one. It's either on the bottom row with the bag cereal, or it's all the way on the top row where you can't reach it. But it is certainly not. I don't think it's front and center.
I agree completely with that. I don't think it's ever presented that way. It's presented you come to God and He gives you healing and rest and peace and comfort, which are all true things, but it's
They are.
usually just in suffering, you know?
Right.
So you have to have the
Yes.
suffering in order to have the peace.
Yes.
So as a new if a new believer were to come to church, how do you feel um they would think when they read or what do you think they would think when they read these scriptures?
I mean, I guess that they would think, yikes, this is a serious commitment I'm making. You know what I mean? And maybe that's what we should be thinking. Because when you come to Jesus, it's not like a I don't know. It's not like something you do lightly. It's not something you do on the side. This is really something that takes your whole life. And to me, I know we're going to get into this in a little bit here. I think that's one of the keys of suffering is to me the suffering is less about like bad things happening in your life and things happening in your life. I think more of the suffering comes from you struggling against your own
Oh yeah,
self-will
for
and
sure.
your own self and like trying to get rid of your humanity so that you can get close to Jesus. I think that's where the suffering comes from. And to me, that's this is going to be a weird way to phrase it, but like that's good kind of suffering. You know what I'm
Oh
saying?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is good suffering.
Right.
I just think of I think a lot of young people coming in,
Mm,
and I do believe that these scriptures are utilized and taught, but I just don't think we explore the extent of them.
yeah.
I think we hear it, we know it, but we don't, like you said, like we don't know what that means. Well,
Right.
I don't have somebody at school saying that I can't believe in God. I don't have
Right.
a government telling me what I can do and what I
Right.
can't do. I don't have people beating me up outside of Walmart because I
Right.
love the Lord, thank
Yes.
God.
Yes.
But there is a version of suffering. And I think we have to allow that to happen when sometimes we'll label that suffering, like that inner turmoil, we'll label it as um, that person's just not for me. They're just not cheering for
Mm.
me. Like if somebody comes and is trying to give correction. And if we talked about it more and understood the importance more, maybe we would be more accepting of that type of suffering.
Or just know that it's coming, just like an awareness of it. You know what it's like when you're feeling bad about something and something's bothering you, just talking about it with somebody else, your circumstances haven't changed one little bit, but just the
Yeah.
fact of you sharing it with somebody else can sometimes make you feel better. And I think as Christians, we probably don't talk just about this concept, like you said, of suffering. What does that mean? And what are we going through? And how we're going to deal with those things? And we probably don't do that enough.
No, I don't think that we do. I think we've talked about this, that we've lost some of that in the modern, well, I don't know. I think it's kind of making a comeback, but
Okay.
we've lost some of this in the modern church where people don't congregate and gather and talk and share suffering
Mm.
as much as they used to. Um, like I think maybe when you grew up, and I think some of it's the sector of religion we grew up in, but our parents were together all the time. People were hanging out.
True.
They were always
True.
gathered, sharing
True.
what was going on. But as we've gotten older, some of that has stopped because we're
Hmm.
connected through phones and social media. But I agree that people don't share their suffering the way that they used to with others. Don't talk about it.
Yeah, and that's something that's biblical, right? We're supposed to bear one another's
Yeah.
burdens. And there is something
Yeah.
I think there's like a critical piece of that community thing that if we lose that, it's not just Christianity is not just about you and Jesus. It is also about you and the people beside you who are walking with
Yes.
you towards Jesus, right? There is a community aspect to it that's like really critical and crucial. And we'll joke, you'll hear church people joke about it a lot of times. They're like, well, if you just get food at an event, then people will be there, but and that
Yeah.
doesn't seem spiritual, but those things are spiritual. Those are
I
godly,
mean, they
those are
did that in the
biblical,
Bible.
right?
Yeah.
That is a community. That's how they met together
Yep.
is with that community. Yeah, so I definitely think we need that.
So, and when you start to look at the history of the church
Mm,
and persecution, so this is something that has happened since the very beginning. And in fact, I have the deaths of the apostles here. I'm not going to read all of them, but I'm going to just speed through a few of them.
yeah, sure.
Peter, he was crucified upside down. Andrew, crucified on an X shaped cross. James, beheaded. John, he actually just died of natural causes.
Oh,
Ah, Philip.
exiled on an island by himself, though. You know,
Yes, yes.
yeah. So it wasn't like in a
He,
retirement
yeah,
facility. Yeah,
wasn't a good thing.
yeah.
Philip was crucified or stoned. Matthew stabbed to death.
Oh,
Speared to death was Thomas. Another James was stoned and clubbed. Thaddeus killed with an axe. Simon the zealot, he was crucified in Persia. Matt was stoned, and Judas hung himself.
yeah.
There were people that were pulled, right? Weren't there people pulled apart? And so didn't somebody have hot oil poured on them or something like that?
Absolutely. Those are all common deaths. I mean, in the first century, they were getting eaten by lions in the Colosseum. Christians were in the Roman Empire. Like there have certainly been periods, and not just early, but like
Yeah.
certain periods throughout history where certain governments or certain groups of people have treated Christians like extremely poorly. We're just so fortunate to live in a place where if you're Christian or
Yes.
Muslim or atheist or whatever, right? Like you're protected in the United States. That's such a great blessing that we don't even have like the perspective to
No.
even know how good that is because of I'm saying like
No.
getting crucified on an X cross or being
Yeah.
stoned to death. That's insane.
Well, and I used to think as a kid, like someone came into my school, how would I answer if they said you either have to die or say
Yeah.
you love Jesus? And I'm like, I don't know what I'd say. But there are people today that are facing those sort of decisions
Yes, there
in the
are.
world even today.
Yes.
So we are, like you said, blessed. But I do think it's important, and this is kind of uh, a point that I want to come back to as much as we can is
Mm.
suffering is expected in the world that we live in, but
Yes.
it is not the goal of a Christian life.
Right.
And so for someone like me who tends to be a little more guilt prone,
Sure.
um, I sometimes would think that if I wasn't suffering, if I wasn't battling something,
Mm.
if the preacher was preaching about you're not where you're supposed to be, if if I didn't apply, if it didn't apply to me, I thought something was wrong, that I must not be living a Christian life. Have you ever felt that way before? Have you ever been like, am I wrong because I'm not suffering?
Uh, yeah, I don't know. That's a hard question to answer because I know what you're talking about. I've heard various preachers say, if nothing's going wrong in your life, then maybe you're not doing enough for God.
Yeah.
And I always get of two minds about these things because on the one hand, I do think that we tend to try to avoid situations where even in the United States, we would face our little bitty persecution that we would just, blow up and post on social media about how bad the world is when other people are getting their heads cut off in other areas of the world.
Yeah.
I do think we actively seek our own comfort and we try to avoid that. I think that's bad. But as far as like, do we make persecution and suffering the goal? Well, that's not the goal, right? The goal is to follow Jesus. The goal is to grow in love with him. I just think those things are kind of like a byproduct of if you're living your life for Jesus, there are going to be times when you suffer. There are going to be times when you are persecuted. And so do I think that that has to be happening all the time? Well, that's kind of silly, isn't it? Because there's all kinds of scriptures in the Bible about blessing and good things that God will give to you. And it's not like suffering and persecution precludes blessing, right? Both those things can happen sometimes at the same time to you.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess sometimes I've thought about this. Sometimes whenever you are in a position where let's say financially you're doing all right, and health you're doing all right,
Sure.
and spiritually and in ministry you're doing all right. It when you attend church, sometimes it can feel like, ooh, that may be a selfish thing right here I'm about to say.
Uh-oh.
It can sometimes feel like maybe like it's not that church isn't for me. I'm not saying that, but it can feel like, well, where's the message for me? But then I'm like, well, it isn't. Like you're there then to serve. So then I was smacked right in the face there because I had a moment of like, kind of like a, ooh, what about me? And then realize, you know what? Like when you're not suffering, you can be serving. You know what I mean? Because
That's
the,
true. That's true. But you also need to be fed too. If
yeah,
if 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 you're okay and your life's okay and you're not suffering and you don't have some, I don't know, 800-pound gorilla on your back and there's really nothing wrong with your life, that again, that doesn't mean that you've made necessarily mean that you've made poor decisions. And church is also
yeah,
for you, and you need to grow and you need to be challenged. And maybe there are things you need to be doing with your life that would take you to see. I see a difference between suffering and persecution. Do you?
I don't know. Tell me more.
Okay, I think there's several different ways here that we need to think about this, which like sometimes people suffer because of the biblical concept of reaping and sowing. Like if you make bad life decisions, sometimes you have to deal with the consequences of those bad
So you
life
see that
decisions.
as suffering.
I think that I mean if we're going to label it, I think that could be part of suffering.
Okay,
Now,
okay.
if that's the case, if you're not suffering because you've made good life choices, congratulations, great job. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing, right? You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah,
until the devil came specifically against Job, Job lived an incredibly blessed life. So as far as
yeah,
that goes, there's nothing wrong with that. That's what you're supposed to be doing. But if you're suffering because suffering to me is internal, if you're suffering because you're dealing with some part of your humanity that you need to get pulled out of you or some part of you needs to change and you're suffering because you're running up against your own human will and the things that you
sure.
want, that's the quote unquote good kind of suffering to me. And if that's the case, I do think we should all be suffering in some form or fashion because our humanity's wrong all the time and we do wrong things all the time. So I
Okay.
kind of see it as a difference. You know what I mean? Just
No,
because
and
there's
that makes
nothing wrong in
sense.
your life doesn't mean that's good. Good job. You made good choices. And someone else whose life may have difficult circumstances. Sometimes they've made their own choices that way. Other times, people are suffering because of somebody else's choice that's affecting them. Well, that's just, what I'm saying? Like that's just the way
That's
the
just
world
life.
works.
That's persecution.
And I'm
More
not
like
trying to
maybe.
minimize that. I'm not trying to like say that doesn't matter because it really does matter for that person's life, but that's not your fault.
No, yeah, okay, so that makes sense to me. So, um I'll just throw myself under the bus with this one, which anyone that's listening that knows me is like, Hannah, but we've all run over you with this bus here. We know what this is. So I am not very good with time management
Okay.
and I'm typically late to most things. I feel like what that communicates is I don't respect your time, which the Lord says to be a good steward. I feel like that means and shows I'm not a good steward of my time or other people's time.
Hmm.
So my suffering, because it is not, Liam's like, you can just get up earlier. I promise you, if I get up early, no, I'm telling you, I will get up earlier. I will be dressed and ready to go. I'll have 15 minutes to spare. And somehow the time I'm supposed to leave, I get inside and I've left my phone and I can't find it's something crazy. And I'll have had set everything out, something crazy like that.
Right.
So my suffering is I constantly have to be on myself about putting everything in the same spot. It's not just a matter of breaking the habit and being a whole new human being. Would you consider that then that suffering as well? Like
I think so
rubbing up
too.
against.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's some kind of like I don't know, a horrible black mark on your character. You know what I'm saying? There are certain things
No,
that
no.
are horrible black marks on our character that we do need to suffer through and get out of. But yeah, I think so. But let's contrast that with like the fact that you and your husband have jobs and you saved money and you were able to go on a trip to Europe. Uh,
Yeah.
that's you're not suffering there, but that's not some kind of shortcoming for you. Those are
Yeah.
biblical things that you have done. You've worked hard, you've been good workers, you've managed your finances, and you're able to go do this thing. So I don't think that you should feel bad that you were able to take a trip to Europe. And so if you're not suffering in that way, I don't really see any issue with that. But yeah, I think there are things that we need to suffer about in our own humanity. And most of it, for most of us, it doesn't even come down to time management. It just comes down to, am I doing what I want or am I doing what God wants? And what I
Yeah.
want's not
Yeah.
even necessarily bad. It's just the fact that I continue to live my own life the way that I want to. We're not supposed to do that.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. So if we're talking then about suffering and persecution, what would persecution look like in a modern world?
I,
What do you
I
what do
think
you think that'd look
in
like?
my mind, persecution is external.
Okay.
So suffering is internal, something that you're going through, you're dealing with. Persecution is external. Somebody's doing something to you because of your beliefs or because of what's going on. And I think that this to me is where America, we're just gonna have to call out all Americans here. Americans get this like persecution complex
Yeah.
because we've never been persecuted. And I do not mean this politically in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I think the fact that this got political was stupid. But like those COVID restrictions where
Yeah.
we couldn't meet in public for a couple months for church,
Yes.
people were screaming persecution and the church is persecuted and blah blah blah. Well, here we are 5 years later. I got to tell you, that was not real persecution. Or
No.
if you like post something on social media as a Christian and people are mean to you, listen, Beyond Sundays posts every single day on TikTok, and I will screenshot Hannah, Hannah some of the comments that we get. And some of the people they do not like what we're saying. They don't like what we're posting on TikTok.
Oh gosh, people
Those
are
things
so
are
funny.
they're not, that is not persecution. And so, like, we have this
Wait,
thing,
I gotta.
yeah,
Oh, go.
go. No, 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 please.
Has anyone said anything about my hair or my forehead or anything
No, no,
like
no,
that?
no, 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 no.
I just
Everything
need to
has
know if
been
I was
about
persecuted or not. I just
no.
no.
Everything has been about like our belief in Jesus. But again, that's not persecution. We have this like we cannot do this boy who cried wolf thing and be like, oh, I'm so persecuted.
Yeah,
Oh, everybody's against me. Just stop. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Just calm down and recognize what it is. So in America, it's hard to get persecuted for your beliefs. Is that crazy?
yeah. No, I don't think it is at all. And I think that just because somebody's disagreeing, it doesn't mean you're persecuted.
Right.
Somebody
Yes.
can say they don't agree. Somebody can say they don't want to hear about your beliefs. Somebody can say, hey, don't teach my kid that at school. And that's not persecution. That
Yeah.
is just, that's what our country's built on. We all have our own beliefs.
Now, here's
So
what I do
go
think
ahead.
is true. If I can say something else about persecution in this,
Yeah,
I
go right
do
ahead.
think that where you find persecution is where you find the edge of what culture is comfortable with. So that when you're living your life for Jesus and you're living it in such a way that is making people uncomfortable, that's what causes people to, throw real persecution or real hate at you or really try to do things to you. And so this is where I do think that we fall short a lot of times is we don't go look for the edge. We don't go look for the things that we could do that could draw attention to Jesus or try to reach people like in kind of more radical ways. We stay at home in our comfy little area that nobody's really doing anything to us. And so we're never finding the edge.
So I do want to, I want to ask your thought on this. So
Yeah.
I feel like right now, I don't know if I would,
Do you think what I said is crazy there? Like to find the edge is
no,
where you get the pushback.
no, I don't think that's crazy at all
Okay.
because I think about like right now with social media and there's so many podcasts.
Sure.
I listen to a podcast that I really, really, really enjoy.
Hmm.
They're not Christian. They just interview a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And there's a co-host on there and she made a comment that really bothered me. And I don't really get too bothered with other people's beliefs if they don't, that stuff doesn't bother me.
Sure.
But there was a comment made about Christian as a whole not
Mm.
being critical. They were talking about a multi-level tier or whatever that is, the where you buy in like LuLaRoe, like things like that. She
Oh,
was like,
okay, okay. Like a
well,
pyramid scheme kind of
pyramid
thing.
scheme. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
she was
yeah.
like the reason that it's so popular in Christian homes is because they're taught to not be critical thinkers and they just take what's given, something like that.
Mm.
And I mean, for days, I really chewed on that because I'm like, just because somebody believes in something doesn't mean that they don't think through it. Just because you have faith, that doesn't mean you don't
Sure.
think through other things in your life. But I do feel like in culture right now, that's kind of happening where Christians are always labeled the bad people. And Christians are always like, well, people say things like, well, the Christians, if they would help out all the
Hmm.
homeless shelters and all these
Hmm.
things, but then the world is also saying, don't give to the churches. They're using your money for the wrong thing. Things like that on social media.
Yeah.
Would you consider that persecution?
Yeah,
Because to
maybe
some
so.
extent, I'm like, I mean, that Marvin Gaye situation, not Marvin Gaye, that's the other singer.
Marvin Sapp.
Well, there we go. Thank you.
Yeah.
Marvin Sapp situation. He was talked bad about for
Yeah.
closing the doors. And some of it, I think, was because they were asking for money. Whereas if it was done at a um, gala for Save the
Sure.
Animals,
Sure.
it may have been
Sure.
considered all right. So I don't know if that would be considered a version of persecution. It's obviously not as extreme.
No, but there's got to be levels to it. I think, just
Yeah,
because it's not beheading doesn't mean it's not persecution. So, yeah, I would say that that's something that we should expect. And I do also think, well, first of all, sometimes I agree with quite a bit of the criticism towards Christians in modern society. And I was going to say to you that the
yeah.
types of things that I think would find the edge where we would face some pushback and some persecution. Honestly, a lot of those things that I'm just thinking in my head would not get persecution from the world. They would get persecution from other members of the church, right?
I completely agree with that. That is,
Yes.
yes.
Like acts of radical love or supporting people when they don't deserve it. Things like that that to me are very much in like the ethos of what Jesus taught and how he behaved, that those types of things would have like, here's a dumb phrase for you,
Yeah.
like church on church persecution, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
Which is kind
also,
of what was that was what was
yeah,
happening with Jesus.
yes,
That's what it
no,
was.
right, the Pharisee, you're exactly right, the religious people. But I also don't think that we should go out in the world and like when we declare our beliefs and some things that the Bible leads us to believe are not the popular thing to believe in society right now. I don't think that we should be shocked when we get pushback for saying, what we believe and how we believe that Jesus' message should go forward. And sometimes we're like, oh, well, why does everybody hate this? Like Jesus predicted this in the Bible.
Yeah.
This is always what was going to happen. The world is always going to push against the systems of Jesus because that's just how it is. They're
Yeah.
against each other.
Yeah. I think, and this is not what you were saying, but I do think we've got to be so careful as Big C Church when people push back at what we're saying, even if it's hard topics, things that we believe in, that we're not like wearing it as this badge of honor in a way that's like, we're just being persecuted. We are so, sometimes I think we do wear
Yeah.
suffering as a badge of honor. I will say for me, again, growing up, I had this idea that you had to be suffering all the
Hmm.
time
Hmm.
in order to to know God. And that meant to me like being at an altar, like down, like, oh God, I'm so sorry for what I'm doing.
Sure.
And personally, some of it had to do with, again, the messages that I was hearing go forth all the time. It was always about get your life right, get this stuff together. So for me, suffering in the church was taught, but I felt like it was in a way that like was kind of hitting you over the head as
Mm,
opposed to like rubbing and making better.
mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But on the other hand, let's take a look at your life. And I'm not sure if we should use this type of language or not, but you're one of the quote unquote strongest Christians I know. And you're a
That
leader.
is the kindest thing you've ever said to me in your whole entire life.
Oh, thank you.
I'm
Or
serious.
not thank you. I don't know. Whatever. Yeah, I definitely mean that. Like, obviously,
That is very, very, very kind.
well, but you are, and you lead things and you spend just an enormous amount of your life trying to do things to further the kingdom. So, like, you're kind of talking negatively about being beat over the head with suffering and always needing to be in an altar. And I don't know,
But maybe
maybe that
that's
was good
good.
for you. Yeah.
I'm
I think you can take it too far. Like, I know what you're saying. I think you can take it too far. But what I'm saying is, most of the time, I don't think we take it far enough.
and I think it's easier to scale back than it
Yeah.
is to like rebirth it.
Right.
Does
Exactly.
that make
Yeah. Yeah.
sense?
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. For sure. For sure. You definitely just have like a guilt thing going on that
Yeah.
I think I don't know where that came from exactly, but I'm not convinced that it's because you heard messages that cause you to get in a posture to
Mm.
get close to Jesus.
Yeah.
That may have just been, your wherever that whatever that desire is for Jesus that you have in your heart, you've had that for a long time. But like look at where that's led you. I'm not saying you're perfect, you know what I'm saying? But
No,
like
but you're exactly right.
you do a lot with your life for God, and that's what we all should be aiming at.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I can't remember if you finished the book, but I read a book that I don't think you liked all that much. The Two Halves of Life sort of
Hmm.
book.
Hmm.
And so I just love the concept of, whenever you start off as a Christian, you do have to start off with all these rules and these guidelines and these ideas. And then as you grow as a Christian and you mature, some of those rules and things drop off, but you realize the things that are good for you and the things that are not good for you.
Yes.
And I feel like in this instance that we're talking about, it's the exact same thing. I grew up with this idea of less of me, less of me, less of me, more of God, purge me. And then as I've gotten older, I realized, okay, that doesn't mean that God is telling me I can't, I'm just need to be a shell of a person. He's not calling me to be a shell,
Right.
but he is calling me to use the talents and the gifts and the things, the ideas that he's given me for his purpose. But had I not had that understanding and that pouring out as a child, I would not be in the mindset I am as a mature Christian now.
I think
So,
what
yeah,
you got preached a lot, or what I'm hearing is, and these were not every message, but I think what you had a lot growing up, and I did too, was deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow Jesus. Get as much of him as you can. Get close to him. Be like go above and beyond, like be desperate about, right? Those types
yeah,
of things. I think, first of all, those types of things are not preached and taught in church enough. In churches, just, again, the Big C church, our favorite kind of
yeah,
church here on the
yeah.
Beyond Sundays podcast. But like on the other hand, we need that. We need that to push us because this is the way I come at things all the time is I always assume that people are going to settle at a level for them that is comfortable. And that's
Yeah.
not what we need to be doing. We do always need to be pushed. And so if you're not ever getting pushed, you know what I'm saying? You're just kind of, again, you're just floating along and being comfortable and you're not living, you're not suffering, you're not finding any persecution in your life because you're not really doing anything. You're not causing any kind of disruption to anybody's life around you at all for the kingdom.
So I'm going to ask you two questions.
Yeah.
One as a assistant pastor at a church,
Okay.
and one as just you.
Hmm.
So if a church was thinking about how to make this a common thread throughout uh, throughout the church, this idea of suffering and the importance of it, and constantly grinding and pushing against the wheel, how would you, as an assistant pastor, how would you guide? What would you put in place to make that a priority in a church?
Hmm. That's interesting. In my opinion, I think you have to look at all the members of your church and you can't just speak to one type of suffering.
Hmm.
The
Yeah.
easiest type of suffering to speak about and talk to is what you have referenced all the way through this. God will fix this in your life. God will heal this. God will deliver you from this. Those are necessary, and that's true and that's real. But that's also the easiest form. It's like the most surface level, obvious kind of form of suffering to teach about. But I think what you have to preach about, what you have to push people on, is the harder parts of suffering, the parts of that's not ever going to be popular with anybody, which is no, you're still hanging on to your life. You still want to do what you want to do. You still want to entertain yourself how you want to entertain. Those things are still the top priority in your life. And so that when you look out over the crowd of your church, you can't just talk to the surface level sufferers whose lives are bad. And again, I'm not trying to minimize that because that's very real for people,
Oh yeah.
you know, but you have to talk to everybody. You have to be talking to the people whose lives are good and the people whose lives are blessed and the people who've made good choices because in some cases those people need to get pushed even more because they don't have like outside things in their life causing them to be desperate. You know what I'm saying?
That is the crux. It's so funny. We always get to that part. You put it into words there. So I mean, my parents separated when I was young, so that was a pressure that I felt.
Sure.
But outside of that, I mean, I've been very blessed to grow up in a good family where
Yes.
we've been taken care of. So the crux right there is some of the suffering that I was hearing about didn't feel relatable. And so then
Correct.
I felt like I wasn't living out real faith at times because I couldn't relate. And so then I think of having children and I think, well, I want them to have a good life. My
Right.
life was wonderful, but I want them to have their life so suffering and this understanding of God. Because and what I feel like you've said, and I agree with, is suffering doesn't just come from these outside pressures. We have to teach people that it can come from laying your life down to the Lord.
Well, think
As
about what
always, you said it
Jesus did.
best.
Think about what Jesus did. Jesus healed all these people, helped all these people, cast all these demons out. So did he deal with surface level like obvious suffering? He certainly did. And he
Yes, yes,
teaches to do that, and we should do that. But also think of all those times that he kind of like withdrew and pulled his 12 disciples into him, whose lives were not messed up and not right. These are the closest people to Jesus. And how many times did he push those 12 specifically? So you can't just deal with the surface level suffering. You've got to again, if I'm answering as assistant pastor, you have to look at where everybody is at in your church, and everybody has to be pushed.
will you then, how do you make sure that you're constantly, I hate to say constantly suffering, but how do you push yourself and make sure that you're growing? And yeah, what do you do?
Yeah, maybe this is just my personality style, and I'm just kind of hashtag built for this. But like in the same way, when we started this podcast, I told
Oh
you
gosh.
no, but seriously,
Yeah.
I lost that weight, and I told myself like, Matt, you're stupid. Matt, you're like you deserve one graham cracker at night, and that's all you get. By the way, I still do that. I really like graham crackers. I really do,
You
but
know
just
what?
one.
Sometimes things stick. A whole, hold on, is it like a whole slot
Yeah,
or
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like
okay,
where
at
you
least
would.
you give yourself that.
Yeah, not one little one, like a full sheet. Yes, one full sheet. But it's like I am constantly kind of on myself about that. Like, what are you doing? That wasn't good enough. Like I put a lot of pressure on myself, and that can pretty easily like like leak over into something that's bad. So you really have to
Sure.
like stay centered over that, and that's probably my struggle is that maybe I am too hard on myself sometimes. But I don't I don't know. For me personally, I just kind of feel like I'm built my personality is built for this. It's never enough. I'm
Yeah.
never doing enough. I'm always trying to push and do more.
I think some of that too is your personality, but I also think um the messages, the things that we
What
were
I grew up
surrounded
in.
by, what we grew up in,
Yeah.
there's so much value inside of that. I do want to say before we stop today
Hmm.
that God uses all of the seasons, whether it's a season
True.
of persecution
Yes.
or suffering or joy, rest, all of it. God uses all of it, and it's about being obedient regardless of the season that we're in. Last thing I have to say, Matt,
Mm.
are you going to suffer through the balloon fest next weekend?
No, I am not.
By the time this airs,
No.
this will air, and then by the time the next episode's out, I think the balloon fest will be over.
And
So I have my balloon fest mug today.
I'm not going to let you persecute me into going. I'm just going to refuse that. I'm out on that. I'm done with the balloon fest.
Oh,
I listen, I like it for you. I'm happy for you. And I watch the Cardinals every single night on my iPad. That's not something that you want to do. So you go balloon fest and I'll watch the Cardinals.
okay. Well, next recording, I'm gonna have my balloon fest shirt and maybe my earrings on too,
Great.
and my
I hope
coffee
that
mug.
you're recording from a hot air balloon. That's what I hope.
That's the best wish you've ever made for me. I love it, and thank you all for joining us today. We always enjoy going beyond Sundays and hope that you enjoyed the conversation today. If you have any thoughts or comments about our topic today or anything else, please reach out to us. Go to beyondsundays.pod.com for our show links and socials. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you, and share your pictures of the balloon fest with us. We'll talk soon.
Oh, man.